this once. And I want to
subscribe.
Kaizoku.
Please buy my new Don. Baby, make your deck go Donna. Baby, I know you wanna buy Donna. My Don, the Don, Don, Don. This video is sponsored by CardMarket, Europe's largest online marketplace for trading card games. This video is sponsored by SleeveChief. Their Solo Hunter collection is dropping on Sunday. Use code CardKaizoku for 5% off your order. So OP07 comes out soon in the West, on June 28th to be exact. So I thought I'd do a video on what leaders you should expect to play in the upcoming OP07 meta. I'll only be covering meta leaders, or else this video will end up being like 2 hours long. But of course, play what you like. Yada yada, love and peace. Garp mains, don't come at me. But we'll go over the general gameplay of the deck, how difficult it is to play the deck, and how expensive it is to build the deck. Hopefully these metrics will give you a good idea on what to build towards in OP07 and invest your time in. And I don't know if it's relevant, but here are my qualifications. So I've only entered a handful of tournaments, but I got top 32 in 2 of them. I've been uploading OP07 format content since 2 months ago in April, so I'm pretty familiar with the meta. So first off, in no particular order, but actually in a particular order, we'll start off with starter deck 10 Trafalgar Law. Law is a little infamous at the moment in OP08, with many people calling for bans or erratas of cards in this deck. Anyway, in OP07, he's pretty much still at the top, but the gap between him and the other decks at the top aren't as wide. So Law's general game plan is to play out 2 bodies a turn while removing 1 on your opponent's side. We can do this thanks to his leader ability. So if you -3 Dawn, you can return a character with 3000 power or less to the bottom of its owner's deck. Then you can play a 4 cost or less character from your hand. This is a very high interaction deck. You'll be playing cards like Gordon and Raise Max to reduce the power of your opponent's characters within the 3k power range. And you'll be playing a lot of characters that ramp Dawn for you to recover that steep -3 Dawn cost of your leader ability. And on top of this, you'll be playing cards like Reiju and Queen to draw you additional cards, as you'll run out of cards in hand really quickly, playing out multiple characters a turn. The difficulty of this deck is quite high. The effects on their own are simple enough, but the true mastery comes from knowing when to use your leader ability and what opening hands to keep. If you use your leader ability too often for little impact plays, you end up having less Dawn to work with. If you wait too long, you risk being overwhelmed by enemy attacks due to the low number of 2k counters the deck plays and you being a 4-life leader. My personal rule of thumb is to keep any hand with at least 1 card draw and 1 power down effect. The ramp cards will come naturally, but the card draw and power down are your high impact cards. And then of course there'll be nuances that you'll have to account for per matchup. When it comes to the price of the deck, I'm gonna be blunt, this deck is expensive as hell. So Promo Gordon costs $35 each, and you'll need like 2 to 4 copies of them. On top of 4 copies of Raise Max, but fortunately Raise Max is like a OP set uncommon, so it's dirt cheap. The other expensive card in the deck is starter deck 4 Queen at $30 each. You'll want 2 copies minimum, but this does go up to 4 in OP08 because you get to play them out pretty much for free with Black Moria, but that's for another time. Just in case you want to invest ahead. EB01 Mr. 2 also goes for about $40 each, and you'll need 4 of them for now. The unfortunate part is that Mr. 2 actually becomes kind of like an optional card in the deck in OP08, but he's still mandatory for now, so you might only get limited use out of this card. Next up is OP07 Rob Lucci. So with Great Eruption banned, Lucci dethrones Gecko Moria as the new premier black leader in OP07. Lucci's game plan is establishing your NE's lobby stage card and just KOing cards on your opponent's field while developing your own bodies. NE's lobby lets you give -2 cost to a character every turn. Your leader ability can give you an additional -1 cost on top of this, while also milling yourself 2 cards from the top of your deck. This helps pay for your activation costs for the rest of your deck, as they require returning cards from your trash back into your deck to activate. And even with Great Eruption banned, Lucci gets Rankyaku in OP07 that is basically a better Great Eruption, allowing you to draw 1 card and give -3 costs for 1 Dawn, but with the requirement of needing 10 cards in your trash to activate. Which should be no big deal for Lucci to reach because you're minusing 2 cards from your deck every turn with your leader ability. Pretty much the strongest combo in the deck involves OP06 Gecko Moria, like literally no one is surprised, that's every black deck's trump card. But what's special about Gecko Moria in a Lucci deck is that he can cheat out 4 characters actually with Gecko Moria. So it's Gecko himself, and then Rebecca, and something like a brand new. Then Rebecca's on play lets you bring back a Spandine from your trash to hand, and then also lets you play it out for free, rested. Then Spandine can play OP05 Rob Lucci from your trash if you bottom deck 3 CP cards from your trash to your deck. So Lucci comes out and potentially KOs 2 threats. You get access to -3 cost between your stage and your leader ability. If you had any additional Dawn for the turn, you could play out like Rankyakus or Tsurus from your hand before playing out the Gecko to guarantee that KO from that Lucci. So those are the 4 bodies you can play out for 8 Dawn in a Lucci deck. Other leaders can only pick either Rebecca or Lucci, but in a Rob Lucci deck you can play both out. I'd say the difficulty of the deck is also quite high. You have to manage your trash and keep track of what cost reduction you have available to KO the board, so a lot of like micro math. As for the price of the deck, OP02 Borsalinos are like $30 each, and you'll want 2 to 4 copies of him. Sabo will run you $20 each, and OP06 Gecko Morias are about $15 each. You'll want 4 of both of these. And then you'll also want 1 or 2 copies of OP07 Sabo. This is the new secret rare of the new set, which I'm gonna guess it'll be over like $30 or something. Everything else in the deck is inexpensive though. Next is Starter Deck 13 Monkey D Luffy. To be honest, Luffy feels like the new Katakuri, do the same thing every game and do it consistently. Luffy's game plan is to find key puzzle pieces in your hand to start comboing with your leader ability. You'll be playing cards like Flampe and Makino to make yourself take life. Garp and the 3 brothers Bond are 8 searchers in the deck that find you the missing puzzle pieces in your hand. So the combo in question involves your leader ability, which after you attach 2 Dawn to your leader, if you discard a card from your hand, you can add 2 5 costs from either your trash or your hand, face up to your life. You do have to be at 0 life to activate this though. And then Luffy also has another ability that changes the rule of the game for himself, where any face-up life damage taken is bottom decked instead of going to hand or into your trash. The 5 costs of the deck consist of Luffy, Ace, and Sabo cards. So the Sabo we run cycles 2 cards, is a blocker and makes your board immune to KO effects for the turn. Ace is a 7k body that gains rush when you're at 2 or less life. These 2 are pretty much your bread and butter, with Starter Deck 13 Luffy and OP07 Luffy being like situational cards. 07 Luffy can pop a 4 cost and draw you a card. Starter Deck 13 Luffy can help you go to 0 life and draw you a card if your opponent's like trying to starve you from going to 0, while also being like an 8k attacker himself. Then there's the 2 cost versions of each of the 3 brothers that let you cheat out the respective 5 cost versions from the top of your life. This also buffs your leader for 2k until the start of your next turn if you play out the 5 costs this way. So being able to land 2 of these effects off will make you a 9k leader that your opponent will struggle to attack over. The icing on the cake is how well OP06 Gecko Moria plays into this combo as well, no surprise. On your 10 Dawn turn, what every black-yellow Luffy does is put 2 Dawn on their leader to activate their leader ability, heal 2 life with the respective 5 cost brother that you need, then play out Gecko Moria with your remaining 8 Dawn, which can play out 2 of the 2 cost brothers from your trash, 1 rested and 1 active, and then you can pop those 2 to make yourself a 9k leader and swing for 11k, and most likely you'll play out a Sabo, 6k blocker, and then a 7k rusher with Ace out with the entire board being unable to be KO'd until your next turn. The difficulty of the deck is average. It may be a little jarring at first if you're transitioning over from like a traditional playstyle deck to this, but once you pick up the mechanics, the deck pretty much plays itself. The deck should also be relatively inexpensive. Most of the cards are from Starter Deck 13 itself. Sabos are $20 each on top of that, and you'll want 4 copies. And then also 4 copies of Gecko Moria for $15 each. This is probably one of the cheapest top meta decks in OP07. Next is OP06 Gecko Moria. While he was dethroned by Lucci, Gecko is still a very strong deck in OP07. With Great Eruption gone, the void can be easily filled with more Hinas, Ice Age, or Helmeppo. I've even seen people run Soap Sheep. The game plan of the deck is to get as much value out of your leader ability as you can. Because what your leader ability does is if you attack with 1 Dawn attached and then you pay 2 Dawn, you can trash a card from your hand along with 2 cards from the top of your deck. Then you can cheat out a 4 cost or less Thriller Bark Pirates type character from your trash. So in the early game, you're cheating out cards like Perona to take cards out of your opponent's hand. Transitioning to the mid game, you'll be comboing cost reduction cards and cheating out Absoloms to kill something on board while attacking with all the 5k bodies you've been cheating out. This is an aggressive control deck. Gecko Moria also has the same 8 cost Gecko Moria comboing as Lucci does, except Gecko cannot play both Rebecca and Lucci out due to not running Spandine, so you have to like pick one or the other. The difficulty of the deck is average, I would say. The math is a lot easier than with OP07 Lucci. Just make everything a 2 cost and then kill with Absalom or Lucci, basically. Gecko Moria deck will probably cost the same as a Lucci deck. It runs pretty much a lot of the same cards. So OP02 Borsellino is $30 each and you'll want 2 to 4 copies of him. Sabo will run you $20 each and 06 Gecko Morias are $15 each. The remaining Thriller Bark package is incredibly inexpensive, so no big deal there. Next up is OP05 Enel, the pure yellow cockroach deck. Enel's game plan is to take life until you're at 1 and then play around your leader ability, which is once per turn. When your life goes to 0, you can add a card from the top of your deck to your life and then discard a card from your hand. So that means with your leader ability available, it takes 3 swings to finish you off. This makes it incredibly hard to finish off in Enel. You basically grind out your opponent's resources and play huge bodies that also heal you, like Yamato and Ace, until you can overwhelm your opponent once they're out of gas. The difficulty of the deck is a little above average, as you're basically just trying to figure out how to live every turn, which does require a firm grasp on fundamentals. There's also the nuance of knowing when to starve your opponent by not attacking at all and giving them life cards. As for the price of the deck, there's really only one expensive card, and it's OP03 Katakuri at $60 each, which most decks run 4 copies of. You could try using starter deck 7 Charlotte Linlin as like a budget option, but you'll notice the difference. We'll also need 4 copies of OP07 Ace, which is the other secret rare of the set, so I'm gonna guess he's gonna be $30 or something, at least. I would say that these 5 decks I just went over are what would be considered the top meta decks. Next I'll go over some other viable decks that may not be top meta, but they're still strong in their own right. So OP07 Jewelry Bonney is a new Supernova leader introduced in the new set. Her game plan revolves around board control. When your opponent attacks for the price of 1 Dawn, you can rest any other leader or characters on their board. This essentially nullifies 1 attack every turn, allowing you to both stay healthy and make your opponent's board able to be attacked into. This means blockers also don't do much against Bonney either. The game plan is stalling until you get to your late game, which consists of cards like OP01 Kid, OP04 Doflamingo, and OP06 Zoro. You can even play OP06 Hody Jones, as you're usually healthy enough to disregard the life it costs to play him. And he's a rush 8k attacker too, which is great. You'll be playing strong blockers like Uruj and Basil Hawkins to help you get there, with Uruj being one of the strongest cards in the deck, as it untaps a Dawn at the end of the turn, allowing you to always have your leader ability active. The expensive cards in the deck are Zoros at $20 each and Kid at $30 each. The quantity of these can be variable, but otherwise the deck is actually quite affordable. OP06 Perona is another viable deck. So Perona's game plan revolves around controlling your opponent's board as well. Her leader ability lets you rest any 4 cost or less character once per turn, or give them -1 cost. The access to cost reduction from the black half of the leader lets you make many characters into a 4 cost if they're not already. Most Peronas now run the green Wano engine, which involves Otama and Hiyori. Otama searches for another green Wano card, and Hiyori can cheat out another 5 cost or less Wano character if you trash her, while also drawing you a card in the process. Combined with You Can Be My Samurai from OP01, this essentially lets you draw 4 cards for 6 Dawn while also developing something like a Mountain God. And of course, being a black deck, we get access to Gecko Moria and all the combos that he provides. So Ryuma, being a 4 cost that can KO a rested 4 cost on play, is a prime target to cheat out with this Gecko Moria, combined with the cost reduction in your deck. The difficulty of the deck is a little above average. Just like with Lucci, you're just basically trying to figure out the math to get the most value out of your Gecko Moria turns. The price of the deck can vary. Some opt to run OP02 Borsellino in varying numbers, which are $30 each. Sabo will run you $20 each, and I would consider it a mandatory 4 of. 06 Gecko Morias are also going to be a 4 of at about $15 each. And then yeah, you can run that 07 Sabo, the new one, secret rare of the set. There's no price for this card yet, but do be wary of that. OP07 Boa Hancock is also another viable deck, so Boa's game plan is very control heavy. What her leader ability does is if a card leaves play from the field from your own effects, you can draw a card if you have 5 or less cards in your hand. This counts KOs, bounces, and bottom decks. It also counts if it's your own character too. You will counter often to get your hand size to that 5 or under magic number to get the most value out of your leader ability. From there, you'll play cards like 6 cost Boa Hancock to prevent your opponent's characters from attacking, while also developing an AK body that is hard to remove. Then you control the board with cards like Gravity Blade, Raging Tiger, and Gum Gum Red Rock, and even OP04 Kaido, the 10 cost one that bounces an 8 cost and a 3 cost back to hand. All of these board control cards trigger your leader ability to draw you a card as well, which will help you refill your hand. The difficulty of this deck is pretty easy. I'd say this is one of the decks that are as vanilla as you could get to like old school One Piece card game, like way back in OP01. The deck is also extremely budget friendly with no cards over $10 besides potentially the new OP07 Boa Hancock character, which is an SR for the set. And it's a really strong card, so I would assume it's going to be over $10 at the very least. OP01 Donquixote Doflamingo is also an option. He gets new life thanks to OP07 and EB01. Basically the aggressive version of the Boa deck we just went over. Doflamingo's version of the deck revolves more around the 4-cost 7 warlords of the C-type characters. Because what his leader ability does is for 2 attached Don when attacking, if you pay 1 more Don on top of that, you can look at the top card of your deck and play it out for free if it's a 4-cost or less 7 warlords card. Most of the 7 warlords are the same ones that we run in the Boa deck, except we play a few extra 4-costs like Edward Weevil and the vanilla Gecko Moria. Your game plan revolves around playing cards like Perona and Doflamingo to rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck to guarantee your leader ability finding a 7 warlord on top. The deck runs the same removal and top end, you're just playing out your 2k counters onto the field with your leader ability instead of drawing them to your hand in this type of deck. The difficulty of this deck is a little more complicated than Boa, as you're having to remember what's on the top of your deck using cards like Perona and Doflamingo to rearrange. If you ever forget what's on top, you're basically gambling that you have a card that you can play, or else you lose a lot of value out of your leader ability. The deck is also extremely budget friendly since it runs basically the same cards as the Boa deck. And yeah, that's all the decks that I have time to go over, because I'm kind of tired now. I hope this gives you a good idea on what to pick up and build towards in OP07, especially if you're new to the game and you're like completely lost on what to do. So I hope this video helped. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos, and don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already, as I upload a variety of content about the game. Bye!
Kaizoku.